Hello, this is Scott Neal. Welcome back to Microsoft 7687 exam preparatory course covering Windows 8.1, and we'll be talking about Lesson 19 today, configuring and managing updates. We'll be covering exam objective 6.1. We'll start off today's lecture looking at the importance of updates. Updates are probably the single most neglected form of operating system maintenance, probably one of the single most reasons why malware is allowed to install on a lot of operating systems out there. So I really want to reiterate the importance of updates for our viewers today. We're going to also be looking at the types of updates. We categorize updates, or Windows categorizes updates based on a set of criteria. We're going to look at that today, and we're going to discuss what that means to you. Also, we're going to be talking about the installation options available, as well as configuring update policies using group policy. We can actually tailor how our updates are installed, checked, downloaded, how our users on a network interact with updates through the group policy console. And we'll be talking about updating Windows Store apps while we're at it before we move into the demo. So let's go ahead and get started. Obviously, updating the system is probably the single most important thing that you can do to help prevent malware from infiltrating the system and maintaining operating system integrity and performance. Updates provide a method of patching security issues found in the operating system. Probably the single most important reason why we release updates to begin with. Microsoft actually takes great care in following a process for developing and releasing updates to the general public. Now, updates provide an additional operating system functionality and fix performance issues as well. So, as an operating system is released and distributed to the public, there are literally hundreds of thousands of lines of code which were designed by developers, checked and rechecked, but unfortunately, as that operating system ships out to the public and is being deployed on a wide variety of hardware platforms, issues are discovered, and the only way to repair or bring back that operating system functionality in some cases is to release an update. Updates include additional signed driver releases to integrate new end-user hardware. As hardware is released by vendors are working well with operating system vendors today, Microsoft in particular, to roll out a release strategy for drivers, making sure that those drivers are safe, secure, signed by Microsoft to ensure the integrity of those drivers, and then they release those drivers as part of the update packages. Updating today's operating system environment is, of course, much simpler and often can be automated. Back 20 years ago, when you wanted to update the operating system, it was an arduous process. But thanks to the internet and using the web interfaces associated with Microsoft operating systems today, the downloading and installation of operating system updates is a fairly simple process. Updates, by the way, in case you didn't know this, in Windows world usually occur on the second Tuesday of each month. We call this Patch Tuesday. And if you work in a networking environment or for some organization, you probably have certain policies in place or standard operating procedures in place that dictate how much time can transpire between Patch Tuesday and when all the systems in your network must be patched. This latency period is often when we have opportunities to test those patches in our operating system environment, make sure they won't hurt anything, and figure out a developmental or rollout strategy for updating those systems. We also have a term in the IT world called Exploit Wednesday. This is typically the day after Patch Tuesday. So what happens is when evildoers receive the updates from Microsoft, they immediately go to work trying to reverse engineer those patches and figure out what exploits they can create using the vulnerabilities of the operating system. Usually by Wednesday morning, they've got it figured out and they're rolling out exploits into the wild to infect systems. This makes updating your system crucial in maintaining a safe and secure environment. So, what type of updates are there anyway? On the surface, the update process looks very simple, almost haphazard. But in reality, Microsoft has put great care and has spent a lot of time organizing updates into categories so that we can better implement an update strategy for our systems. Top of the list is important updates. Important updates fix or improve security features and improve the overall reliability of the operating system. These are generally considered the most critical and time-valued updates that you can apply to your operating system. Recommended updates generally enhance the usability of the operating system and are typically less time-sensitive than important updates. Optional updates are just that, and they have to be installed manually. These include things like driver updates, new features or add-ons not necessarily directly affiliated with the operating system performance. Then, of course, we have security updates as far as a type of update. Now, a security update can be an important update. We tend to rate security updates based on the severity of the exploit that it's patching. We tend to rate those as critical, important, moderate, or low, and they fix product-specific security-related vulnerabilities. Critical updates repair non-security-related bugs, and of course, occasionally Microsoft will release a service pack. This is where they take all of these updates and patches for the operating system over a period of time and consolidate them together so that they can be more easily and conveniently downloaded and installed to operating systems. Configuration options are available as far as how we install and maintain our update environment via the Windows Update Control Panel. Install updates automatically is one of the first choices, and Microsoft recommends this choice. Windows, under this option, will automatically download and install all of the important updates for the system. Another option is download updates, but let me choose whether to install them. Just as it sounds, the updates are going to be downloaded automatically, but then the end user is going to be actually responsible for the installation. The third option, as far as installation options go, is check for updates, but let me choose whether to download and install them. This is particularly good on systems where storage space is at a critical mass and that you have limited resources on the hardware to devote to the installation of updates through the automated process. The end user is notified of the available updates in this particular scenario, but then the end user must choose if and when the updates will be downloaded and installed on the system. And then, of course, the least recommended of these approaches is never check for updates. Configuring update policies using group policy can be accomplished as well by typing gpedit.msc and navigating through to the computer configuration, policies, administrative templates, Windows components, Windows Update folder. From this folder, we can actually go in as administrators and configure update settings using the local, or if you're on a domain controller, the domain group policy to roll out these policies to all of the systems in the domain. We'll talk about this in more detail when we go to our demo segment. This is an example of the local group policy editor on the local machine. And as you can see, there are quite a few settings that we can configure to regulate how, when, and to what degree updates will be deployed onto the operating system. Another thing I wanted to touch base on is using WSUS and SCCM to install updates. WSUS, or Windows Server Update Service, is a product that administrators use to roll out updates in a network environment. It uses a configured server to act as a liaison between the domain systems and the Microsoft Update website. Another tool that we can use to facilitate the timely install of updates on our systems is a product called System Centered Configuration Manager, or SCCM. This is a very powerful tool, and it's used by administrators to control, well, nearly every facet of the Windows operating system and application deployment, as well as update services on our client systems. SCCM is actually kind of expensive to install. It's done by a per-seat license. But if you are administering a very large organizational environment, like a college or a university or a giant utility company or something of that nature where you're talking about thousands of systems, SCCM can be the tool of choice for your needs. Using all of these services can facilitate better update management policies and include testing and deployment strategies as part of the rollout process. Network administrators have an additional obligation when it comes to our network users and client systems as far as ensuring that updates are deployed in a timely manner and are safe for the systems. Therefore, I always recommend any administrator who is responsible for updating systems on a network to develop some sort of a testing strategy, whether that's using a virtual environment or a testbed environment, prior to the release of updates through WSUS or SCCM into their production environment. There are a couple other things that we can do through the control panel as well. We can view the update history by going into the View Update History window or through the Programs and Features control panel. This will allow us an opportunity to look at the updates that were deployed and patched on the system, particularly when it comes to diagnosing recent Windows issues. I can also use this history window as a tool for rolling back updates, either here or via the System Restore or through the manual uninstall via the Programs and Features Updates window. Last but not least, Windows does provide a way for updating Windows Store apps. Windows will automatically check for updates to the installed apps on a daily basis and downloads them to the system, but will wait for the user to decide when to run the update process. If you want to see a list of the apps requiring updates, we can do that too. Simply select the Store tile and then select Updates. It will generate a list of updates that are needed for your Windows Store apps. By default, those apps are going to be selected to install the updates, but I have the ability to deselect any app updates I do not wish to have installed before beginning the install process. And you can disable the automatic download process via the Windows Store page under Settings, App Updates if you want to cancel the process altogether. Alright, fairly quick lesson today. So let's summarize. Regular checking for and installing Windows updates is going to be essential for maintaining a secure operating system environment. This is particularly important if you're responsible for updating dozens or hundreds of systems in your networking environment. If you're in that position, it is going to be critical for you to come up with, design, and implement some sort of an update strategy that allows for the timely downloading, testing, and installation of updates on your client and server production environment. The way Windows checks for, downloads, and installs updates can be configured using the Updates Manager in the control panel or using group policy settings. We'll look at that in the demo. Windows categorizes updates based on the severity of the issue the update addresses. Important updates will receive top priority. WSUS and SCCM can be used in corporate environments to facilitate adequate testing and good update policies. Using the update history can be useful for diagnosing system issues, and there are several methods in place for rolling back a particular update if you think an update is responsible for some sort of trouble on the operating system. Last but not least, the Windows Store apps are checked daily to ensure the latest versions are available, and then it's up to the user to choose which of those apps to update via the Store tile. Okay, so let's go into our demo segment. Okay, folks, welcome to the demo section of our Lesson 19 course today, dealing with Windows updates. And today we're going to be looking at and focusing on our updater. We're going to be looking at using the Windows Update Control Panel, as well as talking about how to change the update settings in the control panel to match our update needs. While we're there, we're going to be looking at hiding and restoring updates. We're also going to be in the process of doing that. We're going to be looking at doing things like rolling back updates, reviewing the update history, and we're also going to be talking about group policy in some detail today before we actually move into updating apps. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's go into the control panel where we can change these update settings. Control panel. Once we're in the control panel, we can go into our Windows Update section. I'm going to actually break this down and look at the categories today just to make it a little easier for us. We can go into the Windows Update straight off the category list. We are now in the Update window, the Windows Update Control Panel item, and as you can see, we have several options available to us. We are set to automatically install updates. This is something that I configured the other day and then rolled out roughly 50 or 60 updates to this virtual machine. So here we have some options that are available to us. We can always go back to the control panel home if we're not sure where we are. I can also look at my installed updates. So let's go ahead and look at the updates that I have already installed on this system. As you can see, each of the updates is installed on the operating system. Not only is it listed by a pretty generic title of what that update is, but more importantly, you see this KB2975061. Each one of these operating system updates has a number associated with it. If I need to look up the specific details on Microsoft's website about what a particular update does, I can always refer back to the update number. So, as we look through all of these updates, you can see that I have been very busy on the 17th of November. So, if I want to go in and actually disable an update, I can do that too, or roll back an update. I can simply go to the update that I want to uninstall and click uninstall or change to actually perform the uninstall for that update. So let's look at an example right here. I've chosen to uninstall this update here for Microsoft, and I can just simply click uninstall, and it will ask me if I want to uninstall this update. If I say yes, it will begin the uninstall process. Okay. I'm not going to actually do that uninstall today. I'm going to cancel out of it. But uninstalling an update can be an important function if, for instance, you have an operating system that was working fine prior to the installation of the updates for the day, and then all of a sudden you're noticing that you're having some sort of issues with the operating system. It may be that one of the updates has done something to the operating system, and you can test that by rolling back those updates or rolling back a suspicious update using the installed updates section of our programs and features panel. Alright, so let's go back to our Windows Update panel. So we've checked for updates. Checking for updates really just boils down to selecting the Check for Updates button, and this will actually contact the Microsoft Update website, where it will poll the website. It will look at the type of operating system that we are currently using. In this instance, it's Windows 8.1 Professional, and it will also look at or do a quick summary of what applications that we're using on this operating system, particularly Microsoft specific applications. And it will give us a list of the updates that are available currently for this operating system. Now, there are several things that we can do as far as changing the settings for this. Let's go into the changing settings while we're waiting for that to pull down the latest updates. As you can see, I've already pre-configured this. Windows 8.1 out of the box is not pre-configured for the download and installation of updates. This is something that the user or you as an administrator will have to do for your machines. Obviously, if you're rolling out a bunch of machines, there are many different ways that you can accomplish this successfully. I could, for instance, create a reference image and set this in my reference image, and then take an image of that reference system and deploy that image to multiple machines. When I do so, then of course these settings will propagate to those machines. Another option, of course, is using group policy to make those changes. And if the computers are on a domain, that makes it so much easier because I can do that from the domain controller. But this is a single user course, so we're going to look at the single user group policy settings in just a couple minutes. So earlier in my lecture, I talked about the four different options that are available for our Windows installation options. Microsoft, of course, recommends installing these updates automatically. 9 times out of 10, 95, 98% of the time, Windows does a very, very good job of verifying, validating, and checking their updates prior to rolling them out. With that said, there have been updates that have severely broken systems in the past. Therefore, using the automated update strategy does include a slight risk for a single user environment, particularly a single user that is responsible for updating and does a very good job updating their system files and their system elements, and has system restore turned on. This is actually probably the most agreeable, and I would recommend probably the most recommended option from Microsoft. However, if you are in a multi-user environment, one of these three other options may best suit your needs. Alright, so as you can also see, these are dealing with important updates, but we can also go down and talk about or apply these settings to recommended updates, and we can also select this Give Me Updates for other Microsoft products when I update Windows. Alright, well, let's go back to the Windows Update screen. As you can see, we have finished automatically polling the website and downloading those or showing those updates. Now, these updates have not been downloaded yet. It is simply notifying me that these updates are available. So, if I want to actually go in and install one of these updates, I can select that option. I can choose the updates I wish to install and begin the install process. Now, since this is set for automatic installation of updates, I will have a period of time, a window of opportunity to check for these updates, look at these updates and make a decision. After that window of time passes, the important updates that are available will automatically install onto the system. Another thing I also want to point out today is this Add Features to Windows 8.1, something we haven't really talked about in the book. But I wanted to show this. So if I want to go in and use, let's see, this is not a good way to do this. Let's go back to Update History, and then I can go into Installed Updates. where it says turn Windows features on or off. You will go, if you ever have a feature that you need to implement for your Windows 8.1 operating system, this Windows features screen, which is available in the Programs and Features panel in the Control Panel, you can go in and select from all of the features that are currently available on the operating system. As you can see, there are some things in here that we have discussed in previous versions of our lectures, like Hyper-V, versions of Internet Explorer, IIS, or Internet Information Services, which allows us to run web applications on the machine itself, Microsoft Message Queue, RIP Listener, Telnet Client and Service, and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of services and features on here that by default are not activated on the operating system that you may at some point need. I just want to take a moment, since we are in a screen that we could demonstrate this, I wanted to show this to you. Alright, I digress. Let's go back to where we started. So, another option that we have available for is when we're in these updates here, I can also choose to hide an update, like so. When I hide an update, this will so this allows me the option of not having to look at that update again. I've made a decision that I don't want to install that update. It does not apply to me. I can hide that update, and therefore the next time I poll the server for updates that are ready for installation, this update will not be visible. I also have the ability to restore those updates as well. Okay? Alright. So, let's move on to the group policy segment of today's lesson. The easiest way to get into group policy is simply to go into Run, type gpedit.msc, and bring up the Group Policy Management Console. Okay, so we're now in the local group policy editor for our machine. So I want to go in and I actually want to look at my options today for my Windows Update policies. So we're going to go in and we're going to say computer configuration, administrative templates, Windows components, and then we're going to look for the Windows Update folder. Don't forget, all these are alphabetical. And once we're in the Windows Update folder, you will see that we have a whole host of options that are available to us. So, if I go into any one of these options, you will see that each one of these options will give us a summary of what that option does and what that option will do when you decide to enable it, disable it, or do nothing to it at all. So, if I go into the Do Not Display Install Updates and Shutdown option in the Shutdown Windows dialog box, that setting will allow me to manage whether the Install Updates and Shutdown option is displayed in the Shutdown Windows dialog box. This basically gives my users the power to decide when or if they want to install the updates and shut down the system. I can enable that, not configure it, and therefore the default parameter will be what happens, or I can choose to disable this group policy. Now obviously I do not have enough time to go into each of these policies. The book that we use for the course, of course, does go into these policies in more detail. But this is where, and if you go into, if you're working on a domain controller, you will see that these policies are very similar. Okay. Another one of these things that we can do is the automatic updates. So if I want to configure automatic updates, I can simply right click on it, choose Edit, and I can go in and say Enable, and I configure automatic updates. I can have a choice. I can do auto download and notify for install. I can do auto download and schedule the install, or allow local admin to choose the setting. I can also select when I want this automatic update process to occur. I can break it down to every day of the week, and I can set a specific time in 24-hour time. Alright, so what else can we do in here? How about delay restart? Delay restart specifies the amount of time that automatic updates will wait before doing a restart of the system. If I enable it, the scheduled restart will occur on the specified number of minutes after the installation is finished. One of the reasons why you have this in group policy is that there are a lot of users out there that will leave their system on for days, weeks, maybe even forever if they could get away with it. Well, this ensures that you will force a restart after an update has been configured on the system. And a lot of updates do not take effect until the system has restarted. As a matter of fact, you can't even go into the history after the install history of the updates and see the latest updates that were just installed until the box has restarted. So, it may be that I would like to enable this and configure a restart to occur after so many minutes. Now, this will, as you can see, it says if it's not configured, the default wait time is 15 minutes. Okay. If I disable it, what I am essentially saying is that I will not force or will not do a restart of the system. It will be user specific. Okay, so this is the group policy editor, of course. These are some of the options that we've looked at that are available to you as an administrator to tailor your update experience for your Windows 8.1 environment. Now, let's go ahead and close out of this, and before we leave today, let's actually go in and see what we need to do as far as disabling that nasty little automatic updater for our apps environment. Okay, so I have had to reset my resolution, and I am going to be going into the Store app here. Okay. Now, while we're in Store app, I do want to take some time to show you how these updates will install. If we go into the update section here, we actually go in and we go to the far right. And we look under Settings, you will see the Apps Update. Now, I'm not logged in, so I'm not going to be able to actually get into this. But when you get into the Apps Updates, you should have a slider here that will say to whether or not you want to automatically update your apps. So, with that said, we'll get out of this. I want to go into the actual updates though. If I'm in the updates here, I can actually go in and I can choose which of these updates I wish to install. I can select all of them, I can clear all of them, or I can select or deselect which ones of those I don't want to update. So if I want to go back, going back, up, okay, I can actually right click on each of these and turn them off and only install the ones I'm interested in installing. Okay, so that is the nuts and bolts of how to use the Windows Store app updater, and that also concludes my demo for the day. I appreciate you watching, And we will continue on with our next episode, which will be Lesson 21. We'll be looking at Windows performance. Thank you very much. Have a great day.